G'day guys, welcome to Scotch Down Under. I'm Ken.
I'm the cue ball, but that's not Scotty.
That is not Scotty. So we got a special guest today. So my better half, Carly.
Oh, you got that right.
Has joined us on the show. And Carly is fairly new to whiskey. She hasn't really drunk many Scotch whiskies. She's tried a few bourbons and a few rums. But I've slowly introduced her to some Scotch whiskey. And this is her bottle. This is not mine. This is her bottle. She bought it for herself.
Do you know why I love that so much? Because I didn't have to bring mine.
And I didn't have one. I've got the other ones. So today we're going to try the GlenGrant 10-year-old. So the GlenGrant 10-year-old, as we said in our previous episode with the GlenGrant Aromatherapy, up that way, yep. They do have the reserve?
The Major's Reserve.
Major Reserve. Then they have an American exclusive 5-year-old.
Yep.
Then the 10, 12, 15, which is American and travel only exclusive. And then they've got the 18.
And the Arboralis.
And the Arboralis, yes.
Which, at this stage, the way it's resupplying, I have to assume that it's going to become a standard.
I think it is. I just got the latest whiskey yearbook, the Malt yearbook.
Right.
And they had a little passage about the Arboralis. So I think it's going to be a standard release.
I hope so, because it's bloody nice.
It's a very good drop. Yeah, look up here for that one. So the GlenGrant 10-year-old is 40% ABV and no mention of filtration and colour, so we assume that
You kind of have to.
Yeah, kind of assume those.
Although, having a quick look.
It is very light. There's not
It's
much colouring in there.
So,
Yeah, not much colouring. These guys have been around since 1840. They're now owned by Campari. And back in 2002, I think they were out of Scotland. They were the second biggest exporter of whiskey.
yeah.
And then Pinot Ricard had them then, and then Campari bought them recently, and it's kind of been going down out of the top 10. But now they're trying to push it up with more age releases. So instead of going for the cheaper stuff, they're trying to push out more of the age stuff into the American market as well.
Well, we actually had obviously it was in preparation for the Arboralis, but we had the Major's Reserve was actually deleted from our range.
Oh.
I think we can still special order it and stuff, but it's not something we have on the shelf all the time. So for GlenGrant now in my store, we have that and the Arboralis.
Wow, okay. Yeah, so yeah, they're definitely changing it up.
And I mean, let's face it, this is the legend in the range.
It is.
Was it 6, 7 times in the last 10 years Jim Murray has named it best 10-year-old single malt?
Yep, best under 10-year-old single malt.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, it's got the 2018 Whiskey Bible badge on there. The same as the 15, it's got their badge on there as well. This is quite interesting because the Borealis has a specific style, and then the 15-year-old has got the same kind of style. Yeah, it must be.
And look, to the best of my knowledge, there's no plans to repackage that.
No.
But who knows? They could do something with it. But
as you can tell, this one kind of stands by itself.
Yeah, but being the masthead for the brand, if you will.
True.
There is that elegance in the way that's packaged. I mean, this is quite modern styling for both of these.
Yeah.
But, that's just... it's graceful, it's elegant, it's simple.
Yeah, it's a nice... What would you say? Slate colour. It's got the
almost
nice...
black.
Yeah, almost black, like in a different light it doesn't appear.
It's almost like a British racing green, almost.
Yeah, it is a slight green. You did say the other night it looks greenish.
It looks green.
Yeah. And it's nice white font on there with the goldy font with a bit of the text in there. Yeah, it's quite a... And on the back, which was quite interesting, they actually got a bit of information about the stills, because he invented a purification system before it actually goes into condenser, which is actually quite iconic for GlenGrant. So it's a bit of spiel about that. And then the bottle itself, I think they've actually changed the packaging with... Oh, there goes the full cap. I think they've actually changed the bottle packaging because this is very similar to the other expressions. And
Yeah. One thing I like about theirs is that moulded fluting on the front.
Yeah, it really does look. Look at that.
It looks like a female.
Well, I suppose you could say that.
Because it just goes...
Yep.
Curvaceous.
It's very curvaceous, yes. And it's, nice bit of embossing on the forecap, which we like to see. And like you said before, it's a very light colour, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honey looking.
So maybe it isn't coloured.
Yeah. I couldn't find anything about whether it's coloured or not. Nothing on the label and the packaging. I didn't dive into the internet to see, but if it's not on the packaging, you usually assume it is.
Okay, so it's like for me straight away, there's honey, but there's an underlying floral note there,
Yep. Something flowery, floral underneath it.
which is something that I personally pick up on a good number of Speyside whiskies. But it's a very soft sweetness. And it's a bit of there's a bit of delicate oak.
Yeah, very subtle oak. Like, they don't say what it's been matured in, but we're assuming it's just American oak.
Well, I mean, it is a fair assumption because that's the standard these days.
It is. Unless it's stated otherwise, it's going into American bourbon cask, so... Yeah, there's a little bit of vanilla there.
I'm getting honey,
Yep.
spice,
What kind of spice?
like a nutmeg spice. Ground nutmeg.
Yeah, it's definitely not a peppery sort of.
No, it's definitely not. But yeah, there's some ground up kind of very subtle spicy thing there, rounded up with the slightly prickly ABV on the edges. It is only 40%, but it's got a little bit of a prickle on the edges.
For me, there's not quite that hit of ethanol that I get from a lot of the. I mean, it's like, as we've discussed before, like, 46 is the magic number for me, where I can just dive right in and I get nothing, and I find a lot of the lower ABVs actually, like, I really get an ethanol or almost a chemical note on the nose, which I have to work past. But with this, it's quite subdued.
Yeah.
So that's a neat little trick in itself.
I'm not getting when I say it's like prickly, I'm not getting like the ethanol burn, but it's like it tickles my nose.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a tickle. Yeah. Because if I go in too hard, it's like ooh, tickling in the nose hairs, and then pull it back a little bit. But it's not that ethanol burn.
Smell orange.
You got a bit of orange?
Yeah. A bit of cat hair too.
Shall we get to the important part?
I think we should. Cheers.
Now, hang on. While you're sipping, and before I do, I have to ask. Is she actually left-handed as well, or are you just joining the trend?
No, I'm right-handed.
Well, you're holding the glass in your left hand, so there's hope for you yet.
There's hope for you.
Okay, straight away, that first tiny little sip, there's that. It's not really honey. It's a little richer, so it's more caramel-esque.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still quite light at the same time.
Yeah, it's a very like caramel. Would you say
Maybe
I wouldn't say nougat, but
toffee. Almost. No, almost a nougat because
like
there is that
little soft.
There is a tiny little sort of hint of vanilla.
Yeah, I was going to say there's
on the roof of the mouth for me.
Yeah. What are you getting?
Smoothness.
Yeah, it's definitely smooth.
Yeah, it's a very, very easy drinker. There's no denying that.
I think on the last mouthful, it reminded me of an apple strudel.
Or apple crumble.
No, like an apple strudel. Just that fresh, crispy feeling from it.
It's just that real typical Speyside note for me.
Yep, light, sweet,
Light,
floral.
A little bit of sweetness, bit of floral, yeah, hint of vanilla, hint of spice.
Bit of grass. Fresh grass, just on the nose in.
No, it's definitely more floral for me rather than sort of grassy or herbal, if you will.
And I'm getting a little bit of grass.
Going for a slightly larger dose of water.
Going for a good dosh.
See, for me now that honey's more subdued, and the oak and that florally, but that's starting to subdue it now into more of a herbal note. So I can really sort of get that more sort of grassy.
Yeah, and it, like dried herbs.
Dry hay.
Yeah, dry hay. Yep. And on the palate, it's way up in the roof of the mouth there. Way up. It's a lot more softer on the approach. Good finish though. Hangs around.
It's got it's got a very, very decent finish on it.
Honeycomb.
Honeycomb? Yeah.
So the honey's becoming a little sharper and flinty.
Like when you bite a honeycomb, it's there and it's gone. Yep.
Like you bite into a white crumble and then just dissolves and it's just...
That sweetness in it, that soft sweetness just lingers.
It does. It really just
lingers.
stays there and hangs on. This is a great afternoon, all day.
Oh,
Yeah.
Round the fire.
Just anytime, all day, every day.
round the fire, on the couch.
Anywhere, yeah.
Just lazing around.
It is a anytime, any day drink.
It is.
Said something about it before we actually started. It was like, right, time to see if it does actually live up to the hype as such. And for what it's worth, you can see well and truly why it has the accolades that it does.
Yeah. Yep.
Because it is just a solid, easy drinking, classic Speyside.
It is a very classic, easy drinking Speyside. Yeah, you've got that. Since you bought this bottle, what do you think of it?
Me?
Yeah.
As in...
Your overall...
Overall?
You feel
Okay,
of it.
first thing, would you buy it again?
Yes, I would buy it again.
That's always a positive.
Yeah, that's what we like to hear.
I would buy it again. It's just something that's easy to drink by itself, not
Yep.
mixed.
Well, I think it's going down all right, 'cause it's only got a tiny little... You drank more than what we have. So for
As
someone...
it shows, it's going down very nicely.
So for someone who's only just delved into the whiskey side of things, you're enjoying this quite
Yes.
nice. Yeah.
Very much so.
So looking online, it's around 60, 70 bucks.
Depending
Where
on
you shop,
where you
where you
shop,
shop.
specials, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Even at $70, 10-year-old single malt, there's very little else in that ballpark.
So that's right. A lot of them are NAS. That is very true.
I mean, okay, you can get the 12-year-old Glenmurray,
Yeah.
and the only one that I can think of with a similar age statement around that price, but you're still talking another 10, 15 bucks up around 85. 80, 85 is your Glenfiddich 12.
Yep. Yeah. And then Livet's going up there as well. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. For 60 bucks, that's pretty damn good.
Yep.
So out of 10, what are you going to give it?
9.
9?
I'm actually tempted to be more generous because, I mean, it's like, okay, even if you look at that $70 area, I mean, for me, one of the first things I think of in that price range is Toki.
Yeah.
And, you know, which is wonderfully light and fresh, but this sort of comes to the other end of the scale where it delivers a little more depth and richness. So I'd probably go 9.25 on it.
Yeah, I was thinking 9.25 myself, because as we just said, what you can get for around $60-70
Yeah.
with the age statement and have that nice light florally typical Speyside with a great finish that doesn't disappear.
See, like for me, I'm really sort of focusing on what's around on a daily price sub 90.
Yes. Yep.
Because I mean, like, well, I mean, even at around $80, you can get your Bowmore number 1.
Yep.
But it's still an NAS.
Yep. And it's a different characteristic than...
Different characteristic.
Yep.
Absolutely. But, you know, to get a 10-year-old single malt for this price, that delivers.
Yeah. And it's
It really does.
a great one to introduce to someone who...
Absolutely.
Yeah. Whereas if you get someone... Like, if I gave you the Bowmore number 1, which is slightly peated, yeah, that would be the reaction.
You can keep that one.
Whereas
No,
this... yeah.
Yes.
Quite enjoyable.
Look, this one in particular is a legit no-brainer if you've got a Chivas lover
Yeah.
that you want to try and get them off blends onto malts, because this is one of the components in Chivas.
That is exactly right. Yeah, when Chivas actually owned it, they used most of this for some of the Chivas blends. Yep.
I remember the first time I ever tried this, it was like, it's so reminiscent of Chivas. And the sales rep at the time, which was the Pernod rep, he was like, well, one of the main components in Chivas. And I was like, well, that'd be why, but it's solid, it delivers.
It's a very
great.
solid dram. And yeah.
And phenomenal value. Even without knowing the price,
Yes.
I would still give it about a 9.25.
Yep.
And if I 100% take the price of it into equation, you'd be tempted to bump it up to about 9.4.
Yeah, and it's definitely a great all-round dram, bang for the buck. Yeah.
And
Yep, totally.
you know, look, by comparison, I mean, I give the Green Label, the Johnny Green, a 9.5.
Yeah.
So
But you're paying a little bit more for that.
you're paying a little bit more for it,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you know, I'll admit that extra point or two is for the peat.
Yeah, that's right.
Keep your peated whiskey.
On that note, have
a good one.
As we said in our brother Alice,
It's got a bit more to it. Can I strangle you?
after me.